Pakalawhātu, Pomari. Right, okay. I know I was supposed to get back to you sooner with a He Puapua report, but I'm sure it's no surprise that as I started to dig, I ended up going down certain rabbit holes, and man, there's a lot of rabbit holes here, and I suppose there's no real surprise as to where they lead to. However, it's always good to make sure of your sources to make sure that it's going through what it needs to. So let's jump straight into He Puapua, the report. Yeah, this. All right, yay. All right, cost me $5 to print off so I could read it. All right, so first and foremost, let's have a look. We've got a whole bunch of authors there. Claire Charters, Kayla Kingdon Beebe, Tamati Olsen, Waimiri Rangi Ormsby, Emily Owen, Judith Pryor, Jacinta Ruru, Naomi Solomon, and Gary Williams. Now, there's a couple of interesting parts in there. Firstly, almost all of them, and only because I don't know who Gary Williams is, I've been able to find information on everyone else except for Gary Williams. So all of those others are either fully or partially funded by the taxpayer. So they have been taking money from the taxpayer for years and years and years, and I mean decades types of years. They've all been or are linked to Te Arawhiti. There's the government departments about Māori affairs, and also there's a couple of interesting parts here. Now, this particular one, I don't think that it's that important, but it deserves bringing up, which is Waimirirangi Ormsby. There's actually the old name also of Nanaia Mahuta's family member. I think it's her father used to be an Ormsby and then became a Mahuta. To be clear, I don't think that that's a massive thing, even if that is accurate, that she's linked. I'm not saying that there's a nepotism element going on there either, just that it is something that of interest to me. But one big one that we find is that these guys are all academics, activists, very much heavily involved in the UN and in the policy writing aspect around things, very much into constitutional indigenous type law, te tiriti Waitangi areas and policy making. So these guys are absolutely making their money. Their money comes from the ideas around te tiriti Waitangi, the new style, ever since the 80s when they started to redefine certain words and change some of the translations. So that's a powerful part of this document, is that it is written by those who are hardened to the left, who are very strongly into the UN, who are very strongly in the pocket of the taxpayer. So the taxpayer is the one who funds them. Make no mistake. Also, and this is quite interesting, is that there's one male in there, Gary Williams. I have no idea who he is. I couldn't really find much on him. I did my best. I couldn't find. I found information on every single one of the other authors. Very easy to find. Gary Williams, I didn't know. I'm not saying he's a token or anything. I'm just saying. All right, so let's go straight into it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read through the executive summary aspects of it and have quick discussions on it, and maybe one or two of the more in-depth parts, because believe me, there are so many rabbit holes that this whole thing is a rabbit warren. Yes, and no surprise where it leads to eventually, but let's get into what we're looking at here, and then I'll make commentary just on some of the stuff that I've had a look at. All right. So the first one is actually a notice to Nanaia Mahuta, and that's from Dr. Claire Charters. She's the person who's Auckland University. She's very strongly all about the ideas around Māori, the ideas around sovereignty, separatism, the idea of co-governance structures, splitting New Zealand into pieces and being able to give it to race-based organisations. Right, report on the working group on a plan to realise the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, He Puapua. That's, first off, really important. On a plan to realise the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Okay, now this is where you have to understand that that particular report is powerful in itself. It's incredibly invasive, and it effectively is apartheid. It is the apartheid ideas around separateness, about splitting up the nation according to skin color or race. On behalf of DAWG, blah, 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 blah. The preface of the report is a whittle from our rangatahi. The preface of the report is a whittle from our rangatahi. Now that's quite interesting to me. So she's basically saying the preface is a report is a whittle from our rangatahi. However, I don't see who the rangatahi or the young people group are. I don't see that. I don't see where the whittle is, a true whittle that would actually do that. A whittle being a challenge, a significant challenge put forward by a group or a people or a organisation or whatever. But and it nearly feels as if they're using the name of rangatahi in order to push forward this apartheid type gender. The declaration plan is of utmost importance to our youth, a word, and that Papatuanuku and her protection is central to Te Ao Māori. Now, right then and there, and I want to sit there as well, and that Papatuanuku and her protection is central to Te Ao Māori. Now, that's quite fascinating because, in actual fact, in those days of Te Papatuanuku and animisms and all the various other areas that were going on at that time, when the missionaries came over, Māori were very well known to actually take on the tenets of Christianity themselves. As in, it wasn't this white people coming over and pushing religion down the throats of the natives. That's the narrative we're given. But in actual fact, the tribes, the iwi, the hapu, were very powerful by taking it on hand. Some of the beautiful stories that we have in terms of the regions, the rohi around New Zealand, is of those acceptances of Christianity and the importation of that into the culture at the time. We found that hostilities wound down quite greatly. We found that cannibalism wound down quite greatly. The ideas of utu, the blood feuds that kept on going. They calmed down, they ceased, they stopped. All right, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. In fact, if you go around to the various marae, pretty much all of them will contain the ideas of atua. Not io, not the ideas around that slash polytheistic, animistic style belief structure, but that of Te Karaiti, of Te Pai Hepara, Jesus Christ, the Good Shepherd, those elements. Really powerful, really important. Let's have a look here. The declaration plan sets out our vision for 2040, in which the declaration is realised. It is the implementation of this UN report. That's what it's saying. And the roadmap. The roadmap is actually one which I strongly encourage you to go into it and have a look at all the various roadmap elements of it. As in, they've written down what they want to have happen. And I can see why Jacinda was very careful about not allowing the people of New Zealand to know. She does not want people to know. And when you read it, you'll get it. You'll get it. All right. And it's been put into place already. This is the thing. The steps are already in there. Our advice on engagement is that it be broad and inclusive. Oh, well, I think it's been pretty specific and exclusive, actually. But hey, whatever. The report as a whole is driven by the government's priorities of well-being, inclusive economy, and pride in New Zealand. Whatever that means. I have no idea what that actually means. A rangatiratanga-centric approach. Now again, a rangatiratanga-centric approach. This means that they are terming the words the way they want to define it. That's the academics. The academics since the 80s, they are defining it the way they find it defined. Not by great people like Apartheid Ngata, the great politician who just happened to be Māori. Right. We are hopeful that our report will be published once it has been considered by the Crown, as we think it will contribute positively to the ongoing socialisation of the Declaration. The ongoing socialisation of the Declaration. Effectively, that means that you will like it. Whether you like it or not, you will love it and like it. You will be made to love it and like it. Now, what I wanted to do also was just to go through some of the first elements of it, right? So, we've got our executive summary here, and I think that's probably enough for this particular report. So let's go straight into some of it. I'm not going into all of them. I just want to go pick out a number of them which actually are incredibly invasive, some of them which are already put in place, and those that are going to be going forward. Report of DLWG, number 1, talks about when to do it, and they're talking about significant dates. All right. Number 2 says Aotearoa is comparatively advanced globally in providing for Māori inclusion in Kawanatanga Karu. karauna, state governance, yada, yada, yada. So basically saying, yay, need to do more. That's what that's sort of saying. Number 3 is actually what I do want to bring up to you very specifically. Number 3, the meaning of self-determination and how it is exercised is up to Indigenous peoples to determine. Let me just say that again. The meaning of self-determination and how it is exercised is up to Indigenous peoples to determine. So you've got a system now who are saying, right, the ideas around Indigenous or self-determination is totally up to whoever is classes as Indigenous, and it is up to them how they want to do it. That is basically writing a blank check and saying, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to take, whatever you want to change, boom, it's all yours. That is incredibly scary and extremely ruthless to whatever democracy is rolling on in there. All right. However, it ranges from full independence at one end of the spectrum to participation in state government at the other. In between are self-government arrangements and autonomous authority in agreed areas. Example, independent Indigenous education systems, healthcare services. Māori Healthcare Authority or Māori Health Authority, Tupuna Maunga Authority, the ones where they want to split up the coastline and make it into Māori control, whatever that quite means, just one body. Centralisation of an education system, basically for Māori. Incredibly dangerous. All right, number 4. The context for the creation of a declaration plan is the long-standing Māori assertion of the right to exercise rangatiratanga and protect our land and territories. Who's our? Exactly. I mean, I'm Te Ateo Ngāti Raukau. Does that mean me? I'm Niue and Tongan and English. Does it mean me? I'm New Zealand. Does it mean me? Which part of me is excluded? Which part of me is part of it? Is it New Zealander? Am I supposed to pick and choose? Is my wife, who is not Māori, is she separated? Are we segregated from each other in terms of power and control? The ability to move forward and choose what I want to do? When we get sick, will my life be considered more valuable because of my skin colour, because of my whakapapa? Number 5. We consider Aotearoa has reached a maturity where it is ready to undertake the transformation necessary to restructure governance, to realise rangatiratanga Māori. Now this is probably the big one. This is some scary stuff right here. Number 5. We consider Aotearoa has reached a maturity where it is ready to undertake the transformation necessary to restructure governance to realise rangatiratanga Māori. Which means that they believe that they've got the power, able to cut New Zealand into pieces and assign it as according to race. It's an incredibly invasive, brutal, ruthless document. It's apartheid. This is bringing in apartheid. I remember apartheid pretty well. My mother marched in apartheid protests, in the Springbok protests. She was there marching alongside. To think that we're going to bring into our own very nation the apartheid laws and policies and structures is a cold chill in the heart of me. 6. The scope of the declaration is broad and touches upon nearly every aspect of Māori Crown relations. Education, health, justice, control, economy, you name it, it'll be there. And who will pay for it? Who will pay for it? Interesting enough, when we go down a few more. Number 9. New Zealand is the first state to embark on a process for a declaration plan, and has the capacity to be a world leader in realising Indigenous people's rights, especially if it is ambitious. Now that's incredible. Okay, first off, no other country is doing this. No one else has the arrogance and also the lack of foresight to do this. It's New Zealand who is the first state to embark on this. And by the way, can I just point out that here, where it says New Zealand, it's one of the only times that you actually see the word New Zealand. It's one of the only times that you see New Zealand, right? Let me point out, I love the name Aotearoa. I love it. I love the way it sounds. I love the meaning. I love the story behind it. I love it. And I hate what those race-hustling politicians and the race-hustling academics and the protests and the activists, what they've done to that beautiful name Aotearoa. They have ruined it. And they are shoving it down your throat. You will believe, you will love, you will like, whether you like it or not. It's incredible. But again, New Zealand is the first state to embark on a process for a declaration plan and has the capacity to be a world leader in realising Indigenous people's rights. Now that's in capitals because it's referring to the UN document, Indigenous people's rights, especially if it is ambitious. That is code, especially if it is ambitious. That means that they're making it so far out there, so hardened to the left, so extreme in its progressivism, that they themselves admit that it is ambitious. All right, we already know that this is a government who likes to play with words, you know. A lie is actually too definitive. Cruelty is actually kindness. They love to redefine their words. So that's why this is just incredible. I also want to point out that there's a footnote here as well, and it says, New Zealand is not the first state to take action to incorporate the declaration into legislation. A declaration bill was tabled in British Columbia's legislature on 24th October 2019. So Canada, Justin Trudeau, who's considered to be the most wokiest guy, who's got a shocking sense of political nous, and very bad in terms of debates. Unfortunately, he's very much like Miss Ardern. You know, smiles, good looking, has a dance, has a hug, but has absolutely zip when it comes to substance and when it comes to the floor of debate and being able to discuss things back and forth in an intelligent, substantive way. No way. Not there at all. So it's quite interesting that Canada's also bringing it in. Canada also was the nation that brought in C16, and that is the one, of course, that suppresses people's ability to say things such as there are two genders, there's male and female. Spoiler, there are two genders, it's male or female. The other ones are something else. Then when we come to it, then we have another look at this area here, Vision 2040 for Declaration Realisation. Number one, rangatiratanga, Māori will be exercising authority over Māori matters as agreed by Māori, and including exclusive and or shared jurisdiction over their lands, territories and resources, and over matters to do with taonga, tukuiho, and culture. Māori will be exercising authority over Māori matters as agreed by Māori. So is that democratic? Is that if you're on the Māori roll? Does it go like that, or is there one authority, or do they go and smoke each other until we can come out and have a fight over it? What does that mean exactly? And also, again, which side do I pick? Because I believe in a united New Zealand. I believe in equality. I believe that no matter what skin colour you are, then you should be treated by the character of your heart, the content of your heart. You know, you should be judged on your action, not because of my skin colour. Anyway. Number two, participation in kawanatanga karauna. It's an odd word. I don't really come across this particular word. Kawanatanga, yep, absolutely. Tino rangatiratanga, absolutely. But karauna is a word haven't really come across too much. All right, participation. Māori participation in central and local government will be strong and secure. Quotas, enforced seating. Don't forget, the Māori wards. What happened was that the people of New Zealand, the people of those regions, they've had their voices stripped. The Nai Mahuta made sure that she stripped the voice of the normal people, of the citizens of New Zealand, so that you have no rights whatsoever in terms of being able to speak about it at all. Your voice, stripped, erased, gone. Māori will have meaningful and sometimes dominant voice in resource management decisions. So Māori will not only have meaningful, which is quotas, but they will have dominant voices in resource management decisions. That's the power of veto. That is the very idea of control. Not just control, but overpowered control. All right. Again, apartheid. We've seen what happens when a minority actually take over the majority of force, of control, of power. All right. And that's why I think apartheid is a very good wording, because you had the minority take over the majority in terms of power and structure and political ruthlessness. Māori will be provided for Māori. I have no idea what that means exactly. I've worked in social sector for years and years. I've worked amongst our brothers and sisters for years. I don't know what this means. Māori will be provided for Māori. Who knows what that means? All right, number 3, lands, territories, and resources. The nation will know and appreciate iwi tribal boundaries, where the practice of mana whakahaere is evident. All right, this is mana whakahaere is actually not an old thing. It's actually a new thing. It's the new way that they're sort of doing things. It's interesting. Actually, it's odd. The nation will know and appreciate iwi tribal boundaries. All right, that's some scary stuff. The nation will know and they will appreciate iwi tribal boundaries. There's no room for free will or discussion or discourse in this. Okay? There will be an enlarged iwi hapu whānau estate, supported by significantly increased return of crown lands and waters, including takatai moana to Māori ownership, in addition to Treaty of Waitangi settlements. An enlarged estate, supported by significantly increased return of crown lands and waters, including takatai moana. That's basically all of the foreshore and seabed. That's everything. All right, which means that fast forward a few years, you're talking about you'll have to pay, you'll have to scrimp and save, you'll have to kowtow. It won't be the people of New Zealand. It won't be. They will flush out words such as tangata whenua and wording such as that, which make you feel good on one hand, but you know deep down that something's really wrong on the other. And again, there's such a perversion of these words. These words used to be words of mana, of honour, but they seem to just be perverting them. Number 4 talks about culture. Overall, I actually like that. But again, it's not something they're not trying to force it so much. It's talking about flourishing culture that'll be protected. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think that's great. I think that te reo Māori should be encouraged, not enforced, encouraged. I think that there's some beautiful parts of tikanga and kaupapa Māori, whichever region you go to. Right. Number 5 is equity. Equity is just absolutely evil. All right. What is a positive and what's worked for centuries, for centuries actually, is the idea of an equality of opportunity. That when you're born and when you're raised, that there's an equality of opportunity. You take on the elements, and what you put in, you get back out. You do the mahi, get the treats. That's the beautiful way. Equity is actually an incredibly dangerous, evil idea of outcome, of equality of outcome. So that whatever happens here, you're going to be all the same when you come out the other end. Now, history is replete with examples of that. It kills in the millions. It's utterly murderous, and it has never worked anywhere, ever. Find me an example. It has never worked anywhere, ever. All right. In fact, it's the most murderous ideology that you can come across. Quite fascinating, really. Now, I'm going to put this up as well. There's these odd spheres, rangatiratanga joint kawanatanga spheres. 2019, they got the rangatiratanga sphere there, joint sphere, kawanatanga sphere, and it looks really small and pathetic. I don't get it. Okay, cool. And then you've got 2040, they want it to be a rangatiratanga sphere, joint sphere, and kawanatanga sphere. All right, who knows what that is? I mean, effectively, again, this just reinforces their idea around cutting New Zealand up, turning it into an apartheid system. It just won't work the way they want it to. All right. Now, there are certain elements that I want to have a look at in terms of that. I'm very aware of time, so I'm just going to go sort of as fast as I sort of can on some parts. All right. Elements of this. Number 25, action is needed across all themes. Declaration realization will not be achieved if the Crown concentrates on certain thematic areas, example, culture, to the exclusion of others, example, self-determination. Now, can I just sneak in there, all right? They're very cunning. They're putting up culture, and then they're trying to somehow equate that with self-determination, all right? Culture, meaning that wonderful idea of customs and foods and languages and words, and then they're putting over self-determination. That's straight up power. Right? That's power. That's control. Don't get that twisted on anything else. And so what they're trying to, the authors are being very clever with how they've done this. Example culture and then example self-determination. Right? That's what they're playing with. They want, it's power, it's control, it's apartheid. That's what we're talking about. At any point, we recommend multiple simultaneous initiatives related to the substance of the declaration plan and engagement. All right, again, you win. 26, in suggesting steps, we have sought to find a balance between providing concrete examples while not predetermining matters that should be informed by a participatory engagement process and or are best determined by Māori through the exercise of rangatiratanga. I have very little idea there what they're talking about. Providing concrete examples, what does that actually mean? You know, providing concrete examples, eh? In fact, this thing is actually very low in terms of real-world examples. There's no real footnotes on anything. There's no APA references, really. There's no real stepping... There's what's that? Canada? British Columbia? They've got something, oh, well, they've stuck in a bill for constitution changes in Canada. That's it. You know, the language is fancy, but very low in terms of what they've actually got. All right. 27. Our starting point is that government takes seriously its responsibilities under Te Tiriti. Which government has not taken seriously its responsibilities under Te Tiriti? Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the Treaty of Waitangi, is a beautiful document. It was a beautiful document. The idea of, you know, Britain, the power had come in, and the Māori knew that it was coming. They knew that, you know, you've got the British and the French and the Portuguese and the Spanish, you know, and there's all these sharks, these bigger fish are in the water, and you've got New Tarani or Aotearoa or New Zealand, however you want to term it. You know, they're the little fish in the water. And they knew they had to catch up with the big fish. So the treaty was a beautiful idea of protection and of secession, and, you know, there were some wonderful elements around it. Yeah, to see it turn into this, to be allowed to turn into this is incredible. It's just incredible. Okay, so time frame, step. Public announcements of the receipt of He Puapua with an outline of next steps. Continued socialisation of the declaration by DWG members in the everyday mahi, and te puni kōkiri and te arawhiti within government. Don't forget, the authors are almost every single one of them, and only because I can't find out about Gary William, all the rest of them are either fully, most of them are fully, or partially, and probably majority, funded by the taxpayer. Right? They get their money from the government, they get their money from policies, and they're all attached to treaty grievances, that whole, what we refer to as the grievance industry. You know, instead of moving forward, it's about sort of trying to stick back there and making that money from hustling with the races and having that racial tension aspect going on. It's quite incredible. Again, apartheid's followed in a very similar fashion with the 1948 of the Boers going in and those elements. It's quite incredible. All right. Announcement of the government's commitment to a declaration plan is a significant event. Then it goes on and on. In 2021, the government will have initiated a public education campaign to give all New Zealanders the tools to have informed discussions about our constitutional arrangements, and set up a process for the Crown to determine how it should partner with Māori in a tiriti-based constitution. Again, that is the scary stuff. All right. Now I'm going to attach something that I did. My favourite policy in last year's campaign, was actually the Constitution policy, and that was there to protect it. Now, of course, we didn't get in. So that which I believe was the most important policy we had also happened to be the more boring one. But it was actually there to stop exactly this. To stop separatism, to stop segregation, apartheid, to stop it. This is what it was. It was there to protect the rights of everyone. It was based off the Magna Carta. It was a beautiful document. I'm going to put that in at the end, so that you can at least have a look yourself and see what you reckon. All right, but there's some scary stuff, you know. To 2025, continuing the journey towards declaration realisation. Now, there's other bits here, but the part that caught my eye was the government will have held a constitutional convention on the Crown's role as treaty partner in future constitution. right? So they're throwing out that word partner, which was incorrect. We were never a partner with the British, right? We were the ones who were seeking to be protected. We were the ones there to do our best in order to get the best deal that we could. Again, that I think about the 337 Māori, prominent Māori, who put their pen to paper saying, hey, please, stop teaching our kids in Te Reo Māori at schools. Please, get them. We want our kids to learn your language so that they can take on the economic advantages of this new world's coming. All right. Again, no one stopped people speaking Te Reo Māori in the kāinga, in the home. But it's blamed on white people. And I've never understood why. I get it though. It gives you a nice funnel for being angry. But it's just not factual or logical. So I think that's interesting. To 2030, the government will have designed and initiated a multi-stage process of constitutional transformation, with 3 streams reflecting different interests: the rangatiratanga stream for Māori, the kawanatanga stream for the Crown, and the rite tahi stream for all New Zealanders, whoever they are at that point. A process for joint deliberation will also have been established. Okay, and then after that it goes to 2030, and then it goes to 2040. It's incredible. And 2040 would just be not just apartheid. Then it's just straight, not just segregation. I think then it would move into a bit more suppression, a more brutal type of suppression at that point as well. Immediate steps. As an immediate action, we recommend the establishment of a high-level co-governance body comprised of equal numbers of government ministers and Māori representatives. You see this? Body comprised of equal numbers of government ministers and Māori representatives. It's absolutely incredible. Number 30. Given the significant overlap and synergy between the development of blah, 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 Māori should appoint their own representatives to a governance ropu, a group. It's just amazing. And then at the end part here, it says, the wero from our rangatahi. Our rangatahi remind us that our work on a declaration plan is of utmost importance to our youth, and that Papatūānuku and her protection is central to Te Ao Māori. What are you talking about? What wero? Which rangatahi? As a group, as a people group, in a rohi, in a certain area? Are you talking about in some sort of collective concept where you talk about the young people? Is that what you're referring to? If you were doing that, to be honest, maybe you should do a better job in the fact that more and more of our little babies are being killed by abortion. And I think the authors would be fine with the absolute disgusting level of abortion that we have in this country. I think that, they're wanting to protect what exactly? Nothing. What they want is an acquisition of power, of control, to separate themselves from all others. This is quite a brutal document. Look, and I'm just looking at the time, I'm conscious of it. There's some incredible stuff here. Look, you know what? Let me just read this. Let me just read one little one. And this is little one, okay? This is just one element of rabbit holes that I was starting to go down. Criminal and family justice. Now, this is under their push for it, okay? Review Section 27 of the Sentencing Act 2002 with a view to expand the use of cultural reports beyond sentencing. Allow judges to direct the provision of reports and increase funding. All right, so most reports, cultural reports, will net you maybe about 20-25% discount on offending. So if you murder or rape someone, then the cultural report actually gets discounted. We're going to be interviewing a guy on that soon. And I really can't wait because he's a great guy. So we're going to have a bit of a corridor about that. Give all prisoners the right to vote in general elections. Why is this a Māori issue? Over 97% of Māori are not in prisons. So why is this a Māori issue? Give all prisoners the right to vote in general elections. So we're talking about what? Tarrant? That Australian scumbag who maybe if he could somehow get a New Zealand, I don't know, whatever, then maybe he could vote. Him? What about the one who raped all those little kids? What was it, 10 years ago? He just went around. What about the guy who actually went, he raped something like, he's purported to have raped something like 50-ish girls over the course of 20 years through rugby or something like that as as a good social service person or something like that? What about that betrayer, that traitor to youth work, the scumbag who managed to get that 13-year-old girl to give him a blowjobs constantly behind the back while he was bribing the other kids with it? That traitor to youth work, you know, why should he gets a vote? But the big one that I want to point out, the last one that I want to point out on this one, is two parts. At the finish of the declaration here, prisons will not exist. That's a direct quote from here. Prisons will not exist. That's a quote. And the other one, all tamariki Māori will be cared for by their whānau. And that's extension in terms of those who kill, those who rape, those who engage. So what about the tamariki Pākehā? What about the tamariki Hāmoa? What about the tamariki Asians? Is it just tamariki Māori who will be cared for by their whānau, no matter what brutal crime they may have committed against people, against perhaps their own brothers and sisters? Apartheid doesn't work. It hurts all of us. Equality is what we need. Equity is a brutal, evil thing to go for. We must stand. I fought for years to try to get this out to people. And, you know, maybe I failed. But I will keep fighting because New Zealand is worth it. All of our people are worth it. The ideas of equality, of justice, of individual rights and responsibilities, those are worth it. The tenets of our culture is worth it. Protection of the innocent, of the weak, that is worth it. I'm so blessed to have been born in this great nation, and I will continue to fight for her and for you. God bless you, and God bless New Zealand. The Legislative Standards Act is my favourite. It's become my favourite. The reason being is because when I first started this journey, it was young people, policies, procedures, the breakdown of family unit. As I went into the youth, it came into the family structure. As I went into the family structure, it spread out into the farming sector and the employment opportunities and the free trade and the private market sector. As we went into that, we went into housing and health and education and everything. It got so big in terms of the rot that we have in our system that it actually became necessary to protect our very system itself. And so the Legislative Act is very much about protecting the very environment that we have in our country. And so it goes back to the founding documents. Well, the two of the most founding documents for tethering all policies and laws, that is Magna Carta and the Bill of Rights 1688. And so the Legislative Standards Act protects it and ensures that it is a protected way of dealing with policies and procedures. So instead of hurting people, you've got the two documents that protect the common people, and that becomes entrenched because, for example, you want to change anything, must be unanimous voting by every sitting MP in Parliament, and then it must go to the people of New Zealand as per a binding referendum. And that makes it incredibly strong, and that's the way we can actually protect our very political environment. Because right now, it's absolutely fractured and it's hurting people hugely, and it will hurt generationally, not just individually.